Behold, my glorious supporter, Flipz, has requested some discussion about, well, about Nightwave, which is sort of Warframe's battle pass. And I have some things to add to this one, but before that, Flipz asks, what makes a good Nightwave mission for each category? 1,000 points, 4,500 points, 7,000 points. Hereafter, daily, weekly, and elite weekly. Are there any existing Nightwave challenges that you feel belong in a different category than they're currently in, perhaps need their numerical requirements tweaked? Are there any Nightwave missions that don't currently exist that you believe should exist? Any other improvements you'd like to see in Nightwave going forward? Cool. So why the Battle Passes addendum? Warframe's Nightwave is a very different approach to using the design space of a Battle Pass than most other games have. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit before we get into what would make a good thing for them, because in Warframe, I think there's an argument to be made that it's something different than in other games, and I'm gonna talk about that first. I think that's really interesting, and I'm gonna make kind of a controversial point about the Nightwave axe that I think will make more sense if I say this first. So here it is. So yeah, in like Genshin Impact, in Apex Legends, I don't know, these are just games I've played that have battle passes. There's this thing, they're paid. So the things that give you experience on the battle pass should be things that you do just by playing, because you don't get it for free. There's often a free track, but it's like nothing by comparison, usually. I guess in Genshin Impact, it's a little bit substantial, but it's a lot less than the paid offering. You mostly pay, and then you just unlock it. Battle passes can be a little bit of a dirty system when monetized, because usually they're time-bounded. There's this weird thing where theoretically it would be better to just play to the end of the battle pass period, see how far you get, and then buy it, or decide whether you're going to buy it. Because then you can decide whether the stuff you unlocked is what you want. Like, would you pay that amount of money for that stuff? When you buy it at the beginning, you get everything you unlock as you go early, but you don't know how far you're actually going to have time to get to. Depending on the game, this is more or less of a problem. There are games like Magic the Gathering Arena, for example, and Apex Legends too, where my experience is that it's not that reasonable to unlock the whole thing. Like, you would have to play a lot for months to unlock everything. There are other games like Genshin Impact, where if you play daily just to do dailies and spend your resin, you will easily get the battle pass all the way filled up with a week and usually a bit more to spare without much difficulty. Especially if there are events and you participate in them, it's very easy if you play every day a little bit or most days to get it filled up. That's a pretty big difference. So we can't talk about that. That depends on the battle pass. My point is that for those battle pass systems, maybe you can see where I'm going with this now. For those battle pass systems, I don't think it's a good choice to make the things you do to rank up the battle pass at all obscure. They should just be like the most general things. In Genshin Impact, for example, the reason it works is because they are the most general things you would do rank up the battle pass. You spend money on anything, in-game money. You do dailies, you mine ore, the most general stuff. You killed some bosses, you do some domains. You automatically get those if you play at all. So it's perfectly reasonable, provided you play consistently. There are some others that really ask you to go above and beyond because, and this is the critical point that'll pivot us to Warframe, those battle passes, well, Genshin Impact does too, offer an option to pay real money to move further along the battle pass, which is obviously hilariously financially inefficient. But what they're hoping is that you kind of get stuck. You buy it, and then you're a lot of the way through it, and then the big reward at the end that you want, it's near the end of the period, and you're not quite there, so they're hoping that you'll spend a bit more. And so when those games, not Warframe, with paid battle passes, have challenges that are obscure, that they're trying to filch you, is what I'm trying to say. I'm sure you can now see where I'm going with this. In Warframe, almost all of that is the reverse. I actually think Warframe is a pretty good place for things that are more off the beaten path to be Nightwave challenges. And I know some people are going to hate that. I actually currently hate that as well. So I'm going to start answering this question by talking a little bit about how Nightwave is different from other Battle Pass systems, things I like, and things I want to add to it that I think would make it even better. So one thing that's crucial about Warframe's Battle Pass is it's a free-to-play offering. There is no paid option, and it is one of the most free-to-play friendly parts of the game. It offers some Warframe weapon slots from time to time. These are things that are normally the only thing in Warframe that you cannot get without paying platinum. Never mind that in Warframe you can trade in-game items to get the cash-up currency. Still, even then, you can't just at will get platinum. You would have to pay a little to get slots, unless you were going to spend time grinding out things to sell, which a lot of people don't want to do, right? You pay to skip the grind. And Nightwave is the one place where you're regularly given a small number of Warframe and weapon slots. So just as an example, it is a very free-to-play focused offering. I think that embracing Warframe's idea of paying to skip means it's okay for some Nightwave challenges to be long and hard, if that's what the offering is supposed to be for, is for the free-to-play player. And then, yeah, you might say, okay, but then you're just trying to get people frustrated. But the other thing about Nightwave that differs, I think, quite a bit from other battle passes is it's actually easier to max out the battle pass the later in the period you are, which is the opposite of other battle pass systems. Usually it's harder or outright impossible to max out a battle pass that's paid if you're late into the period. There simply isn't enough time to do enough challenges or however it works. In some cases, it means that you need to do more particular things depending on the battle pass model, rather than just doing daily stuff. You need to do like everything that advances the battle pass rank, right? In Nightwave, it's kind of the opposite because if you complete a lot of the challenges, all the challenges for a week, you can go back to the previous week. Here's where I want to make a change. I think that system is really good. What I don't like about it is that you need to do literally every single challenge to go back. That's a pain. That can become a lot. One tiny change, I think, makes this much better. You don't need to do the elite weekly challenges. That's it. And then as I go through, I'm going to be talking about those elite weekly challenges as a way that more free-to-play players or players that want to get through the battle pass quicker can get a lot more out of it rather than needing to do every little thing. Another thing that's great about the way Nightwave is balanced is that you don't need to do all the stuff, even close to all the stuff. You can do, last time I checked, it was like about 66% of the challenges will get you maxed out if you play for the period the battle pass is active, the period the Nightwave season, whatever, it's a battle pass period, is active or intended to be active. And they always go over time anyway. But even if they didn't, you could do like 66% of the things and have everything from the battle pass. Again, like 66% sounds like a lot, but that's to get every single thing. Like you gain basically nothing from doing the battle pass. If you do 66% of the stuff, that's not that bad. If you could then go back, that would give you almost total freedom to do pretty much whatever acts you want. And then if you want to advance further on the battle pass, you have the option to do these elite weeklies that reward you with a lot. I always liked how the elite weeklies give you a lot of whatever it's called, but standing, battle pass standing, Nightwave stuff, points. Battle passes are too much. They all have slightly different names for things. Anyway, let's get into the missions. So Flipz, I hope you don't mind me derailing it to talk about the individual acts. We are going to do that. I'm just going to skim each category and give my thoughts about like what I think that category maybe should be, some examples of ones I think are a good fit, some examples of things I think are a bad fit, and we'll go from there. Before we start that, overall critique I have about Nightwave acts, they aren't very equal. This is kind of a problem in Warframe overall that we've talked about previously. Oftentimes numbers don't really make that much sense in Warframe. Like a number on a thing is just sort of, I don't know, an equivalence. Things in the same bucket being equivalent to each other. That's also a thing Warframe often doesn't get very right, and you can really see that here. Let me give you an example. So we'll start with dailies. These are worth 1,000, points. I think that amount is perfectly fine because most of them are things that if you play, either trivial to do or you will do automatically, provided that you don't avoid that part of the game. And a thing that dailies do fairly well is introduce the player in various games to systems that maybe they would be skipping over, but you really shouldn't, or the player should at least be aware of those systems. They can be kind of a quiet tutorial, as long as you don't have to do them, which of course you don't. So let me give you a few examples. So Accelerator, kill 20 enemies while sliding. Yeah, I mean, this is something that you might not automatically get just by playing Warframe a little in a day, but provided you do slide and bullet jump and stuff, which like are useful things to do, it's not exactly hard, you know. It would be trivial to get it done in 1 or 2 missions, provided you use that mechanic. You see what I'm saying? I think that's a pretty good example. That's not a bad place to be. Deploy an air support charge in a mission for 1,000 as a daily. Yeah, that's fine. If you don't know air support charges exist, which a lot of people don't, that's become a slightly more robust system over the years. I feel like that's a good way to get the player to know that. Sure. Killing enemies with a certain type of damage. There's like a bunch of those. It's fine. I do think these are a little weird because sometimes it's like the player just hasn't gotten far enough in the game to have that. I think a thing about these dailies is they should be as accessible as possible. A thing I'm going to critique as we go through is how a lot of Nightwave acts aren't really suitable for the newer player. You don't have to be able to do them right away. I'm not trying to say that, but they shouldn't be things that you need to go like quite far in the game to do. We have activate a Requiem obelisk on Deimos. So I know some of these you don't get until you're there. So that they kind of get away with that a little bit, but I don't really like this one that much because it's one of those things where it feels like the game is just bribing you to play it. I should just want to play. You should assume I want to play the game that I played. If I only get to Deimos, you know, through my own effort, and then you give me a Nightwave act to like go back or something, I don't know. It just, you would figure I either want to go there, in which case I'll go there. You don't have to push me there, or I don't want to go there, so let me not go there. You see what I'm trying to say? So I don't love that category. We'll just skim through a little bit more. Mark 5 mods or resources. Yeah, like, so you know that you can mark them for co-op. This is not a bad example of one, I don't think. There's this weirdness where they can have different values. So here's one that has the wiki list that it gives you a little more standing. You hijack a cruise ship from the enemy. Yeah, so I don't know. It pushes you to play Railjack. You have to have Arcwing unlocked, so it's not like new players can't do it. But this one is a little weird to me. It does feel like kind of forcing you into a certain game mode, but on the other hand, it lets you know that you can hijack cruise ships, which is of questionable effectiveness to do. I don't know. And then there are other ones like, here's one for suspending 5 or more enemies in the air with a heavy melee slam attack. But suspending enemies in the air is disadvantageous in the current state of Warframe. So because they get knocked around, they're inconvenient to hit together. It's not an advantage. So this is one where I guess that's just a gripe with the game mechanic, really. They're asking you to do a thing that you're worse off for having done. That's also something I don't love here. Things like deploy a Spectre, you know, kill enemies with a certain damage type. These are things that you could as well do. You see what I'm saying? But there are some of these things in here where it's like you have to be less efficient. Yeah, kill 10 enemies with finishers. Like that, it's not efficient to kill enemies with finishers. So I want to be able to play the game at full efficiency, just maybe in a slightly different way, pushing me out of my comfort zone to get these dailies done. I think that's most of what I have to say. I'll just scroll through. Yeah, deploying a glyph, playing an emote, just things you might as well know exist. Hacking consoles, fine. I sort of like this category where it's a type of, battle pass activity where you can get it done by just doing normal missions. Consoles for security will go off in normal missions, but you could be clever and get this done faster by picking like certain kinds of missions. That seems good. I don't see why not. Complete a mission with only a primary equipped. Yeah, I hate these. It's just an example of one where you're just worse off. And it's not really interesting. It's like you just have to use a primary. I don't see how this is better than kill 150 enemies with a primary weapon, right? It's just saying you literally can only use a primary. It's like a fun challenge, but I don't know. Maybe some people think that's a fun challenge. Kill a Kuva Thrall if you can get Kuva Thralls. It's fine. Opening lockers. Yeah, okay. I don't have too much more to say here. Obviously, we could go through all of them, but that really would be a long time. My general shtick here is I think the value's good. I think it should be things that happen in normal missions. You should be able to just play a little and get them done. These are the ones where I really don't want the player to have to go out of their way, because that gets tedious if you don't get to pick when you do it. Weeklies are the one where this can be harder, maybe a specific type of mission, something like that, and then you weave it in, that's fine. And then elite weeklies are where I'm interested in making them be pretty particular, and they mostly are. But remember, I want this change where you can go back to previous weeks if you complete all weekly only acts on a week. You don't have to do the elite weeklies to go back. That's my change that I want. Let's talk about weeklies. These don't give enough, I don't think. I think they should give more. They currently give 4,500, 5,000, 7,500. I think the ones that are not dailies should give more. If you want to build it up day by day, that's fine. The thing about weeklies is that these need to perform the function of letting the weekend warrior, if you're not familiar, a slang term for a player that plays a game that rewards you for playing it daily, mostly on the weekend. So this is a player that misses out on the benefit of playing a little every day, traditionally, not always, but traditionally. This highlights the player that pretty much only plays on the weekend. And a lot of modern game design is really unfriendly to this approach, which I think is really unfriendly to most players. That's unfair. So I think weeklies should give more. They should help you catch up if you're the weekend warrior player. If you don't want players to progress too fast, which I don't think is a concern, but if they did want to do that, you can always make there be some, I guess, cap on the amount of standing you can get. Make weeklies worth more, and then if you do all weeklies, then that's, and like a few dailies, then that's it. So you can't get literally the maximum. I don't think that matters, but if they were really worried about that, it's not like there's nothing you can do. It's funny, at the top of the weekly acts, the first one, can you think of the most stereotypically irritating weekly act? Okay, maybe not the most, but the one that has a lot of infamy, socket 3 Ayatan sculptures. So this one, okay. The thing about this one is that up until very recently, there really wasn't a way to do this, like, deliberately. You would have to get lucky. You can try to hunt for them in missions. There are ways to do that, like blow up all the stuff, get all the loot, and then what's left on the map, sometimes you can see them marked. There's a way to do that. Very recently, we got a Helminth ability that you unlock at a pretty high Helminth rank that lets you search for things like this. I really don't think that's sufficient. I really don't like this one. I think fully socket 1 Ayatan sculpture is fine because you can get one from Maru's Bazaar. But 3, it's not really that attainable. Like, a lot of the time you just can't do this unless you do a very specific game mode that awards them, like arbitrations. You can crank them out, right? You could buy them from other players. But I just think that's really inaccessible, and I think a lot of new players especially. If you're an established player, like for me, it's easy, but that's not a good metric. It doesn't matter how easy it is for me. I think this is a bad one and they should just take it out. But 1 Ayatan sculpture, fine. Another approach here is that you could have these be worth different amounts. That's okay. 1 Ayatan sculpture isn't worth 7,500. Fine. Let's make it 3,000. Fine. No big deal. Unlike the dailies, I think having a mix of weeklies of different values is okay. But my philosophy is going to be, if weekly and elite weekly are going to be a meaningful distinction, weekly should still be relatively general things. It shouldn't be like, kill this exact boss, you know. The weeklies I'm seeing, the weeklies you commonly see, are the 3 of a mission type one. It's fine. It's a farming game. Like 3 assassinations, fine. Sabotage mission caches, that's fine. Feels like a tutorial thing, like you're pushed to go do them, but it's really not that hard because it can be, find all caches in 3 sabotage missions. No, I read it the way that it should be, is find 3 sabotage caches in missions, and then make it 3,000. Fine, whatever. But yeah. Here's one that's been pretty divisive. 3 different perfect animal captures in the Orvalis. To me, this is too specific. This is like, I guess, Elite Weekly. This one bothers me because I know a lot of people just hate the animal conservation part of the game. And I relate to that as someone who, yeah, sort of hates it. But mostly my problem is that it's very different from the core gameplay loop. I don't think it's wrong to include that stuff. I don't mind mining as a thing in Warframe. It somehow fits a little bit for me. Fishing, I don't know, man. Like, it's not the end of the world. That's not really the problem. My point is that this is so different from the core gameplay loop. You really have to go out of your way. And they know a lot of people don't like it. That's why it's a Nightwave act. And I feel like it shouldn't be that way. At best, this could be like complete, 3 animal captures. Not perfect. You don't have to be good at it. These should be designed more around the person that doesn't want to do them and feels like they have to do them. For the person that wants to do it, it doesn't matter that it require you to be perfect. They just will get perfect captures. I think something in general with Warframe is designing it more around what players are gonna think about it rather than what hopefully they try it and have fun. Okay, but some people won't. How about thinking about those people much more is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. Conduits and Disruption, yeah. Kuva Siphon missions. I think Kuva Siphon missions aren't too specific. Again, you only get that if you've done the War Within. 5 different Planes of Eidolon bounties. That seems a little specific, but maybe just not 5 bounties. And that's another thing about a lot of these. When I say like the time balance, many of these take way longer than other ones do. Digital Extremes probably could fairly easily remedy this by just recording how long it takes people to complete them on average, and then like averaging out the amount of points they get, or here's an example of something that could be interesting. I don't know if I like this idea, but you could have a system where, kind of like Rivens, the less people complete a Nightwave task, the more points it's worth. Something like that. And so if people go for the ones that are worth more, they'll even out, and usually it'll be fine. But if people really don't like one and are avoiding it, then you can do it and get more points. So then it kind of balances itself. It's a little lazy, but kind of cool. Maybe, I don't know. But I wanted to note that like 5 different bounties takes like 10 times as long as 3 assassination missions. So having them be worth the same amount is a little bit, I don't know. Maybe that should be an elite weekly. Mining rare gems, mining rare fish. I don't love these ones where you have to get lucky. So the gems one, you have to get lucky. The fish one, you can use bait, but you have to be at a high level for that to be the case. And you can get this at any level. So I feel like the fish one, maybe just catch 15 fish, mine 5 rare gems or ore. Again, make the number a little lower, make the value of Nightwave standing you get a bit higher. 3 exterminates, pick up 8 rare mods. That's another one. I don't like this one because it's a little bit too far in the direction of, you remember I said about the console hacking one? You can just hack consoles and missions, that's fine. But you could intelligently pick mission types where you hack more consoles. Also fine. I don't really feel that way about this rare mods one. It's like you could easily do missions for a whole day and hardly get any rare mods. But if you do specifically the index, you get this done in like 10 minutes. I feel like that's a little too cheesable, because then this is basically just do a round of the index. So just make it do a round of the index. Make it an elite, or you do a round of the... And there is an elite like that. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know. If they wanted to have these be together, like the week that it is, do a round of the index and do well or whatever that one is, you also want to put this one in. Okay, I maybe feel a little better about that, because then players notice, oh, it's like multiple things at the same time. You're tutorializing farming efficiently or something. Some of them, Xmas Exterminator, you kill 30 Xmas enemies. Yeah, like Sanctuary Onslaught makes it really easy. This is another one though, like if you don't go long in a mission, which you generally don't gain that much from doing, especially if you're a new player, you're just getting through the star chart, it's like it's either really easy or it just won't get done, which again, I just feel like there's too much of a feast or famine thing with a lot of these. I think that's most of what I have to say about these. Let's go to Elite Weeklies. So again, my maybe a little controversial change for these, a lot of them are like this, is I think they should be worth more. I think you shouldn't have to do them to get to the previous week of Nightwave tasks. You complete everything else but not Elite Weeklies, and then you get to go back to the previous week. And they can be specific. These can be things that are worth a lot, but are pretty specific. And I think the key here is so that they're accessible to new players, a lot of them should be locked behind doing the thing that makes them allowed. So like a lot of them are complete 4 Halls of Ascension on Lua, requires completion of Second Dream. Killer Convert a Kuvalich, you have to do the War Within. Cold Steel, kill 1,000 enemies in the Steel Path, you have to have the Steel Path. You see what I'm saying? So at that point, and a lot of, as I'm scrolling down, a lot of these are like that already. It is kind of similar to my desired system already. But a lot of the ones that aren't like that, you know, this means if you're a new player, it's rather predictable which one you're going to get. And there's still a Feast or Famine thing here where you can get kill shot, kill 1,500 enemies. In a horde shooter, that's nothing. If you play for a few days, that's like you won't even notice it and you'll get it done. And then there's complete a spy mission with 3 manual console hacks and no alarms. For some types of players, this is very difficult. I think it's kind of easy if you're a very enabled player. You might have, perspicacity. You have access to that Hellman thing for hacking, or you have a lot of ciphers and you're good at doing that. You have a Warframe that can negate laser barriers. You have a Vara with her augment. I don't know, Wukong, Limbo, some such. Then this is really easy. But if you're a newer player, asking them to do it perfectly, I don't know what's up with all the Nightwave tasks where you do it perfectly. The idea, I think, is to emphasize that if the player does even better, they kind of get more of a reward. But because these so rarely apply when you would be doing the mission, I feel like you're only doing a spy mission because of this. So the only point in doing the spy mission is to do it perfectly. So that's not rewarding you for doing better. You just gain nothing unless you do perfect. It doesn't fulfill that design goal. That's what I'm trying to say. Kill the Exploiter Orb is available to all players. That's no. This is how I feel. And then again, there are other ones like the Silent Exterminator. This is one of my least favorite ones. Complete extermination with only level 30 or higher enemies without triggering alarms. This is, for me, one of these problem ones where you're being asked to do something inefficient in exchange for a reward, but I don't know. I just feel like it's not hard to make these, like complete an extermination mission with only level 30 or higher enemies, like while being invisible 50% or more of the time or something, or get a certain number of kills while stealthed is almost the same as this, but it doesn't ask you to play needlessly slowly. You see what I'm trying to say? Stuff like that. Sortie Expert, I really don't like this one. You have to do 3 sorties. So for a lot of players, this is a gotcha where if you check on Saturday, this is just impossible, which you just make it 2 sorties and give us less points. Something like, or 1 sortie, don't make it. There is one of those, but you see what I'm trying to say? So I don't know. There are a few. I have some miscellaneous thoughts as we're finishing up. Complete a survival mission reaching at least 30 minutes. I've always been a little prickly about, because the game otherwise heavily disincentivizes you from playing in a mission for a long time, especially updates, patches, constantly push the game away from rewarding you for spending a long time in a mission, which, and this is a bit of a side note, is necessary, because if you don't do that, then you make a game where you have to play missions for long times, or you're playing inefficiently. You have to balance the game around players that don't do that. For what it's worth, I think Warframe has done an okay job giving you some reward for playing in a mission for a long time without making it at all feel like you need to. In fact, it's usually more efficient not to, but there is some incentive to do a mission for a long time, right? So that completing a survival mission for 30 minutes isn't that long. I think 20 minutes would make more sense here, because it teaches you that at 20 minutes you get a unique reward. That type of AABC, rotating drop table thing for endless missions is a really unclear part of the game that I know trips a lot of newer players up. And having it be like, if they said complete a survival mission, gain a rotation C reward in a survival mission, and then in parentheses, last at least 20 minutes, then maybe players would learn something, and it's also pretty much the same challenge. So I don't know. Some of these I feel like it's just a wasted opportunity. And for this kind of thing in the game, I know I always say this about Warframe, this is extremely low-hanging fruit. This is like someone on their coffee break goes in and changes some stuff, and the game gets noticeably better for like basically no work. Like it takes essentially no effort at all, and the game just improves. This is the kind of thing that if you don't have a lot of time in your hands, which is where Digital Extremes clearly is right now, this is the kind of thing that you'd expect to see changes for, but it's the only thing we hardly ever see changes for. Things like numerical mod buffs, or again, like status changes that are just numbers. It takes basically zero development time. It just takes someone having the good idea. People have had the good idea, so I don't really see why this kind of thing doesn't get in here more. Every single discussion I ever have about Warframe rolls back to this thing, because it is, I believe, the core problem with most of the game. They're sitting on an ocean of free content, basically free content, and it's just not utilized because it seems like they don't really care about that. It's not art, and they care about the art of the game, which I respect greatly, but I respectfully disagree with. So go figure. Overall, I really like Nightwave. There aren't really Nightwave tasks that don't currently exist that are not very similar to ones that already exist. So we could talk about, like, yeah, for the elite weeklies, stuff like killing a boss, like the Rapalist or something, if you've unlocked it. Like, I think that type of thing is a good fit, but, or like do a K-Drive race, like things like that, feel like good fits for these to me. But that's not any different from, like, you know what I'm going to recommend based on what I've been talking about. So I hope it's okay if I answer it more generally like that rather than specifically. We could go through and add a bunch of very specific ones, but I don't think that's particularly relevant. It's just more of the same, but get it consistent, get it to be the same amount rewarded for each one. Really harness them as more of a tutorial vehicle. Keep much more of a mind on the new player, who is really the only person you need to help with these. It doesn't really matter what they are for an advanced player, provided they're somewhat reasonable, because we can just figure out a way to do them and make it work. So I don't really see why it matters to put a lot of effort into the advanced player ones. We should be focusing on the new players having a reasonable experience of it. This is the place, not in updates added to Warframe that are not at all new player focused. I don't know how people think that that's a thing, that they're focusing on new players. That's like the last thing that's being done. This would be focusing on new players, and I think they should. So anyway, I hope that was an interesting answer. I had a lot of stuff to say about related topics like battle passes and stuff. So thanks for asking. It was interesting. I liked these less than I thought I would. I thought it was going to be mostly, oh yeah, I just want to adjust the amounts a little bit. By the way, elite weeklies, at least 10,000. 10,000, come on. Weeklies can be 5,000, I guess. Elite weeklies, 10,000. Come on, give me that 10,000. I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for the question, Flipz.